All right, this meeting will now come to order, and I will read the EPSB mission statement. The Education Professional Standards Board, in full collaboration and cooperation with its education partners, promotes high levels of student achievement by establishing and enforcing rigorous professional standards for preparation, certification, and responsible and ethical behavior of all professional educators in Kentucky. Serving as board secretary is Leah Sharp. Ms. Sharp, please call the roll.
Amanda Ellis.
Present.
Susan Reaver.
Present.
Diane Berry. Present. James Cousins.
Here.
Elijah Edwards.
Present.
C.J. Fryer.
Present.
Kathy Gunn.
Present.
Priscilla Keller. Amy Lingo.
Present.
Jacqueline Mayfield. Corinne Murphy.
Present.
Meredith Pittman. Lisa Ruzinski.
Present.
Andrew Stone. Vice Chair Weidman.
Present.
Chair Mitchell.
Present. Thank you so much. Interim Commissioner Robin Kinney joins us as Executive Secretary to the EPSB. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Isn't it a beautiful day today?
Yes.
It is.
I hope that some of you have a few minutes as you leave, if you didn't see the Capitol tulips. They are glorious right now, purple and gold. And I'm so glad that the wind and storm that we had from a couple of days didn't take them down. But if you get a chance, please go by and see them. It is a pleasure to see all of you this morning. A lot of things have been happening since the last time we met. The biggest excitement, I guess we could say, is the Kentucky Board of Education has entered into a contract with our next commissioner of the Department of Education. That contract is contingent upon approval by the Kentucky Senate, and we are hopeful that that will happen before April 15th, which is sine die, and we are very optimistic that Dr. Fletcher will be approved. I thought I'd take just a minute and share with you a little bit about Dr. Fletcher and also the sort of the criteria that the board looked at as they were trying to find our next commissioner. Let's start with the criterion first. And we felt that Dr. Fletcher really satisfies all the qualities that we're looking for. If you'll remember, we did quite a survey of all interested stakeholders looking for input from EPSB and others about what our next commissioner should possess. And these are the four dominant themes that kept coming through from those surveys. An ambassador or statesman, someone that can talk with our General Assembly or other legislative body in support of public education in Kentucky. An expert instructional leader, and you will see that Dr. Fletcher has been a teacher. He's a math guy, is the way I describe him. Science as well, but he has been a teacher in the classroom, also a principal, and has been superintendent in Lawrence County schools for about 10 years. So an expert instructional leader, a strong organizational leader, someone that can run the Kentucky Department of Education, work with other agencies here in the Commonwealth, including EPSB, and ensure that the vision of the Kentucky United We Learn initiative that we've been working on so hard does not lose momentum and continues moving forward. And then finally, a visionary innovator, someone who's not afraid to try new things, but is willing to chart a course toward this bold new future of education in Kentucky that we all desire. So Dr. Fletcher, the board felt met those qualities. He is a graduate of Morehead State University and the University of Kentucky, so he's got degrees from both of those, a doctorate of education from Morehead State. And like I said, he has been in Lawrence County as a superintendent, but he's also been in he's been in Bourbon County, he's been in Williamstown Independent, so he's been in other districts as well. So we look forward to working with Dr. Fletcher. Again, I'm hopeful about his confirmation that will happen soon. He will join us on July 1st officially, but he is very anxious to get here and meet people and really roll up his sleeves and start to work with us. So we look forward to him coming in July. Other things that have been happening, of course, and I talked a little bit about the Kentucky United We Learn initiative. And remember, that's the sort of grassroots, from the ground up initiative that the Department of Education and the Kentucky Board of Education have been working on for about 3 years now. Starting with the voices of Kentuckians and bringing it all the way up to now that we are actually talking, meeting in work groups, and really we're at a point where we're really starting to look at implementation. And remember, the things that really focusing on engaging and having vibrant learning experiences for our students, innovation, especially in assessment, as we start instructing differently and having those vibrant learning experiences, how do we then assess that? And then, of course, really starting to bring in sort of what the local community wants in terms of in what they want their local school districts to look like, so local community engagement. Two things that are, we have our April convening for Kentucky United We Learn at the end of April, April 25th and 26th, so there'll be more work happening then. But two things that I think I would like to call your attention to that you might be interested in is we have launched our Kentucky Innovation Guide. If you receive and look at the Kentucky Teacher publication, there's a really good article in there, and you can actually click and see the Kentucky Innovation Guide. It looks at things that are happening in our school districts right now with the hopes that we can share more information with districts and communities that aren't already deeply engaged in this type of learning, and they can find it not so scary. We have lots of districts that are out there doing this, and so we kind of want to spread the good news. And then I also wanted to share with you sort of the evidence that that learning is happening in all over Kentucky. And a great place to see this evidence was at the STLP conference that happened at the end of March. If you don't think vibrant learning is happening in Kentucky, this is a great place to see it happening full force. Let me just share with you some of the 4 state champions that were selected and just their titles of what they are working on. I think you will find very encouraging. For the K-5 division, which means kindergarten through 5th grade, the best STLP project in Kentucky is about Spanish outreach from Bowen Elementary School in Jefferson County. The 6th through 8th division best STLP project is a digital window, Fallsburg Elementary School in Lawrence County. The 9-12 division, sensory scripters, crafting Braille for 3D precision. And that's out of Bourbon County. And then the Dave Sigler Award for the best technical STLP project is Creative Community Communication System out of Crittenden County. So these are students that really, with the help of their student, with the help of their teachers and encouragement from them and guidance, are looking to solve problems not only of their local community, but really the world. So we see lots of vibrant learning experiences happening all over Kentucky. Great encouraging news. Thanks to all the teachers that work with our students to make learning a fun and enjoyable place to be. I think that's all I have, unless there are questions from the members, and then we have, of course, the various reports from others that are here with me today.
Any questions?
Okay, we'll go then to our next report from the Education and Labor Cabinet, and Susan Reaver is here with us today to give her report.
So just a couple of updates. We are tracking, obviously, the legislation, as all of us are. For the Cabinet, Everybody Counts, which is their program that helps direct workforce into high schools. So there's a direct pipeline, is not funded in either the House or the Senate budget. So we are tracking that, and hopefully something will come out of that that's a little better. We'll see. I also wanted to note that we have a new executive director of the Governor's Office of Early Childhood, Lynn Baker. She was the interim. She has now been appointed to the full term. And then Anita Dowd is the new executive director for the Kentucky Commission on the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. Other than that, we are just trying to get through the next week.
Thank you. Under understand that completely, so are we. Next, we have the report from the Council on Post-Secondary Education, and Amanda Ellis is with us.
Thank you, Robin. And yes, we concur. We're ready for next Monday and super excited for that. But a few things going on I just want to bring to your attention. Recently, we received a Lumina Foundation grant that really looks at, we call it the Great Admission Redesign, but it's really working with our campuses to rethink about the barriers around admission and to be more efficient and more engaging, more inclusive. So we'll be working on ideas and strategies around that in the coming months. Also, we did host our Student Success Summit on the 26th and 27th at Western. We had over 400 folks, higher ed professionals, just really thinking about different approaches to higher ed, admissions work, student preparedness. It was a really good couple of days. We had great feedback, and of course, Western was a great host for us, so we were really appreciative of that. We have a Climb Health convening that's on our healthcare workforce that will be convening in May. We're pulling that together. And then just the last quick thing, we are down to the final few months of our ESSER dollars that we were graciously given by KDE to work on that transition opportunity for high school students to transition into post-secondary with support. And so we have 58 grants that we have just done, mini grants, that still support some seed money for the campuses to offer summer bridge programs. It is very little money, but the campuses have really invested time and money into this bridging opportunity, and we have done external evaluations of the impact of those students. Are they staying? Is it worth it? And absolutely it is. And so we'll be able to share that the next time. They're still calculating some data that they're doing, but we're really showing that students who engage in the Summer Bridge program feel like they belong, they know what to do on campus, they build relationships with the faculty, and they are really successful, and they're sticking with it. And so I'm so happy about that. And we're also putting a lot of focus in on dual credit and exposing students, non-traditional students and families into what dual credit can do, what it is, the responsibility of that, and campuses have engaged with that as well to work with different districts to really open up those doors and make folks aware of what's available. So I will stop there and turn it back to Robin.
Thank you, Amanda. And next we have Dr. Darnell.
Thanks, Commissioner Kinney. Well, interesting day. It's just coming off of March Madness. Today is Solar Eclipse Day, so we have that. And thank you, Ms. Trueblood. She's coordinated the gifts appropriately. I love them both. Extremely creative. Let's see, and oddly enough, Louisville men's basketball has a coach. But University of Kentucky basketball does not have a coach.
And we're kind of excited about that.
You know, the interesting things on Solar Eclipse Day that happen. We are in Kentucky, so these things tend to make headlines. Western Kentucky has a coach as well.
We're very excited.
Yes, so we all kinds of interesting basketball moves going on. Morehead State as well. But then also for women's sports, the first time ever we'll likely see more people watching the final for the NCAA women's basketball than perhaps the game tonight for the men's. So exciting moments of recognition and tilting happening. But most importantly, I'm sure many of you all are coming off spring break. I hope you've had an opportunity to enjoy yourselves. And as we proceed into the final stretch of the school year, at least I know my own children are already asking how many days till testing. So the conversation has begun, and here we are leading into. Many thanks also to the hands that take care of us in OELE and do all the preparation for the meeting. Ms. Chesser is trying to get over COVID, so think about her and as she gets back to normal health very soon. But Mr. Good and crew, as well as all the other hands that assist. And also just a thought and for Simpson County. Unfortunately, some students involved in a very serious accident, and just a aware that this is an extremely painful time for all involved in the community and for the students and the staff. So many thoughts and of course prayers going for those individuals and families affected. In leading with the goals that you all have drafted, focusing on educator preparation programs and meeting or exceeding accreditation standards, the Accreditation Audit Committee will meet on June 14th. So we're not prepared yet, but once the June 14th meeting happens, there will be several institutions that will go before the AAC post their accreditation visits and the completion and the reports. We've also moved into your approval of honoring CAPE and AQUEP as national accreditors. And so AQUEP being new to Kentucky, we will have institutions that will complete their processes as well, in addition to the CAPE processes that we are most familiar with. And then there are still a few institutions, a small number, that are doing state accreditation only. So we have a mixture of all three that will go before the audit committee on June 14th, and then sequentially to you all for approval. We also continue through Ms. Strad Davis and Education Certification Division, looking at the program review process and working with institutions. And the process has changed to getting like institutions as peer program reviewers for one another, and the feedback and processes that have come. A lot is being learned about the transition, but the opportunity to have input from other similar institutions, I think, has been extremely valuable in the process. And of course, as you all had approved that being the goal of providing more specific and related feedback across our state, especially for the institutions that are of smaller size and independent. Moving to the every certified position in Kentucky Public Schools, staffed by properly educated, properly credentialed educator. The lead report, of course, being the primary metric for this. It is scraped from Infinite Campus, where the districts put in their positions and the courses that they're teaching, and then there's a match process that goes with the Munis data that coordinates with the actual paying of individuals for those particular positions. But at this time, we have 97.4% clear with the lead report. So, you know, in the large scheme of things, we certainly continue to see challenges in finding appropriately certified individuals. But I think it shows a testament to districts doing the best that they can in order to make sure that they have qualified educators in front of their students. So the report also has moved from sort of a one-time submission in November to now it is a continuous. So the dashboard is running continuously as opposed to just a one-stop in November, which I think has made the process much easier on the district end, because it is using systems that we already have in place. It's not requiring them to stop what they're doing to create a different report. And so definitely we've seen just, I think, an ease on the level of workload and a more consistent reflection of what is happening within our district since they work to fill positions. Within, since we met last, our PEC system, the credentialing system, and the team that supports that, always working diligently and providing excellent service to our educators and potential educators. But in February, there were 2,647 applications that were completed. And then in March, we had 2,834 applications that were completed. And so far in April, we've had 693 applications completed. And so, mind you, this is a culmination. Most of these are likely involving recertifications, as the system has worked to send out reminders so that people aren't waiting to the last minute in June and then panicking. But it is a culmination of all our certified substitute emergency certificates, our other certificates, but the vast majority of them will represent credentialed educators. I want to, just with the goal of every certified educator exemplifies behaviors and maintains the dignity and integrity of the profession, I know that in the board materials, you all have the update on the cases from the legal team. And I just want to continue to applaud the efforts of the legal team in working with myself and working primarily with you all as representatives of the board. I just cannot say how positively I feel they have impacted working on the cases to make sure that we remain current, that backlog situations have been cleared, with the exception of cases that involve external agencies that are sort of out of our control, if you will. And they, I think, have improved via your all's feedback with how to work through the cases. And we've seen many iterations occurring. So thank you for your feedback in providing to them the best way to manage the process, which is quite laborious and, as you all will know, extremely important. But I just want to continue to applaud the efforts that are taking place on the legal end with the number of cases that come in each month. And then the highlight being communication with stakeholders, education partners, and the public. I just want to point you through the GoTeachKY.com website. If you have not listened to, if you aren't a podcast person, as I said, even dogs have podcasts now, and I understand there's a saturation point, but if you're like me, there's plenty of windshield time, and listening to podcasts is how I tend to pass the time. Go listen to the Why I Teach podcast. The first series will highlight the Go Teach KY ambassadors for 2024 that have been selected through a rigorous process. It represents various regions of our state, but there are just snippets of why they teach. They give their 2 to 3 minute story. There's one also with the 2024 Kentucky Teacher of the Year, Kevin Daly, that is a little bit more long form, but if you just need something to build you up, his podcast is just one to go to. It just reaffirms why we are in education, and his story is pretty unique and refreshing. So I just point you to an opportunity to listen to the voices of teachers here in Kentucky. And then also we continue to work with those ambassadors that are taking opportunities for, particularly in our career fairs and at our universities, to just be a public face for Go Teach KY out across the state. And then I would be remiss, finally, if I did not leave you with the record number of students participating in the Educators Rising Conference back on March 6th. This was around the time we were convening last, but I think we had a total of 771 attendees for this particular event, and it was an outstanding day. It moved to the Kentucky Exposition Center, which was quite a leap from what we had previously. But even though I can't claim David Couch STLP status
You'll
yet,
get there. You'll get there.
he has a few years with the STLP, and I do concur that is just an incredible event. If you've not had a chance to participate, it's marvelous. But we see that at least things are moving in the right direction. So maybe Mr. Couch will have a competitor in the number of our students interested in education, and then even more so competing in the events and putting themselves out there. More specifically, looking out across that big room, just the broad diversity represented amongst the students is just awe-inspiring to see. So many different young individuals taking the time. And we know that just by the law of percentages, a percentage of those individuals will go into classrooms. So it is a point of reference to be specific about in terms of working on the pipeline and elevating the profession. It was an outstanding day. And my final thought was I just happened to catch just offhanded, I heard a group of students standing as we were kind of finishing up, and one student said to another, "I can't believe inter-school name won so many this year. Like, yeah, I can't believe they won so many this year. And then another student retorted back, well, you just wait till next year when we come in here. We're gonna change that. So anytime you get students in their own circles having conversations, then, what better can you ask for as they talk with one another? So it's an honor. Thank you all for your time and service, and greatly appreciate everything that you all do to help support the profession and OEO here. So my gratitude to you.
Thank you so much. And I can echo Byron's remarks about the level of joy in the room as those kids were interacting with each other. It is promising. It's very promising. I know we talk a lot about sort of the bad side and the not very favorable comments that we hear. But to be in a room filled with all those kids that were all very interested in education and changing the world was just, it was very inspiring. So now we're going to turn it over to Ms. Trueblood, and she's going to give us a legislative update.
I do echo everybody's excitement for the end of session, but also trepidation of all of the work that's going to come following the 15th. Also for the goodies that you have today, I can't take full credit for that. Back in 2017, this board also met during an eclipse, and we had casting members, Yoli Carter and Carol Ryan came and did open speak and shared fun facts and passed out the moon pies and sunships, so I can install their creativity and continue that on this year. But for the legislative session, I did send you all an update of the status of some various bills that we've been following. So if you do have that link, there was an update after I sent it on Friday. House Bill 825 was delivered to the Secretary of State to confirm all over without the governor's signature. Senate Bill 265, which we will talk about today because it impacts some of the regulations before you. That one does still have a few days for action from the governor, so we will continue to watch that. That one did pick up House Bill 828, which was the mentoring program. We currently do not see any funding for that mentoring program, but I have no idea what will happen these last 2 days, so stay tuned. We'll try to continue to give you updates as we go through all of this different information. A lot of the bills that we are watching that are going to affect the board are still in concurrence. So that means that they were not passed out before the veto period. If any of those bills were to be vetoed, well, one, if they are to pass in the final 2 days, and then were to be vetoed, there's not the ability to override that veto. That just means you would see them again next year, more than likely. But with that, that does include House Bill 300, which we've had a lot of discussions about really affecting your educator case process. We've seen, as with pretty much every bill out there this session, a lot of changes, a lot of different amendments that were filed. In the Senate, there was a floor amendment that ultimately was defeated and was not picked up. However, the Senate committee substitute has passed, and so that is where it is pending in the House now for concurrence for the House to concur with that amendment. It did make some changes to the timelines. It did specify that those timelines begin with a completed complaint, and it offered an additional hearing officer choices instead of simply the AG's office. There was the potential to hire your own, to contract with one. And then it also extended out the expedited hearing process. Obviously, there are still concerns with that, but we will continue to monitor that one. Right before they passed that, they also passed House Bill 275, which places those additional requirements for background checks, for districts to check with the EPSB regarding pending cases or previous cases. So that if that makes it across the finish line, that's also going to require some work from this board regarding the procedures to comply with that. House Bill 162 is the Act relating to mathematics instruction. We will also talk about that a little bit today during your review of the student teaching regulation. with some additional requirements that it places on student teaching. And then the substitute teacher certification bill will also require some action from this board and some revisions to your regulations on substitute teaching in its current form. It would remove any college credit requirements for substitutes and would allow an individual with a high school diploma or equivalent, I believe is the final number, to qualify for the emergency substitute certificate, which is a 1-year certificate. And then it creates a 5-year substitute certificate for individuals with a bachelor's degree and a 10-year certificate for individuals that previously held a certificate, those that have completed a teacher preparation program. Right now, those individuals have a 5-year, are eligible for a 5-year substitute certificate, so this would just extend the ability further on that. So again, we have two additional days. Right now, those are still April 12th and April 15th. And prayers, and we will see what happens at the end of it, and we will provide you with an update. Are there any questions about the bills that we provided you? Thank you all.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all of our guests who have come to give reports to the EPSB board. I also want to just close by a thank you to Chair Mitchell and Chair Weidman for meeting with me and members of the EPSB staff. My hope is that we can start this more regular meeting process, and I'm going to share with Dr. Fletcher and encourage him to also meet with you all in advance of your meeting each time. So thank you all for your time and helping me to learn more about EPSB and the processes. And that concludes our reports.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I appreciate just throwing out there the willingness to work with us and wanting to, I know we have Dr. Fletcher in the wings coming, but I do appreciate you stepping up to this role and really taking time to really get to know EPSB, get to know our policies and procedures and wanting to be involved. And so I do appreciate that. And I think that has led to the smoothest transition that we possibly could have. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I just would like to echo that. Thank you for stepping up in that interim role. It's not easy to come from one role to another, knowing that you are filling a gap and leading the Kentucky Department of Education through a session and all of the transition of hiring a new commissioner. So I just wanted to say thank you for being willing to step into that role, because it's not an easy one.
It's been my pleasure.
All right. Well, at this time, Ms. Sharp, has anyone signed up for open speak?
Yes, Dr. John.
All right. Well, as Dr. Lanham, is that what?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I was saying correctly.
Dr. Lanham.
Come on up. Just a reminder to our board that in open speak, Dr. Lanham, you'll have 5 minutes to speak. And we'll keep track of that time back here, as well as the board will need to refrain from any questions or comments during that open speak time. Right.
So will somebody give me a nod with maybe 30 seconds left? I could probably talk for a day.
All right.
Get you started.
But I will try, everybody's time here is valuable. I will try to keep it succinct. Thank you for letting me address you. So, my name is Dr. John Lanham. I've been with the Kentucky Department of Education as a teacher in Jefferson County Public Schools for 26 years. I am here because my certification is under attack. I've been fighting with your legal department for the last several years over unsubstantiated, unfounded allegations by students, primarily coming out of the COVID pandemic or the COVID war. And we were all encouraged. We got to get these kids back in school. We got to get them back in the way of thinking of learning and getting on with their life. And that was strongly encouraged. This was glove in hand to me. My practice, and I've been teaching IT courses and digital literacy and computer literacy and IT certifications and that type of thing at absolutely the highest level nationally at Eastern High School. For a 5-year stretch, we were the #1 IT certification high school in America. #1. That doesn't happen by accident, ladies and gentlemen. That happens with structure, discipline, rigor, relevance. These kids know when you're lying. They know when you're trying to push something on them that doesn't matter. Of course, not every student cares. You know, they're not down for that. Sometimes they're there to have a good time and eat a free breakfast and free lunch, and find a new girlfriend or find a new boyfriend. And that's fine. That's all fine and dandy. Good for them, until they start affecting the person next to them. See, then that's a problem. When Jefferson County Public Schools adopted restorative practices and positive behavioral intervention strategies, it was like dropping a bomb on the quality of education, at least at my school. It went out the door, and feelings came in. And that has been a problem. So I have had multiple allegations, completely unfounded, by people who says I'm mean, and I'm disagreeable, and I'm unprofessional, and I'm unethical. Ladies and gentlemen, I have never in my life made a decision in the classroom that wasn't in the direct best interests of that child long term. Not today, not tomorrow, long term. Are we going to set them up with the skills they need to survive in this world? And this world is tough. And when they leave our doors, people stop caring as much. They just do. So in my perception, from my perspective, and in my practice, it's skills-based. Not necessarily what you know, what can you do? I heard a wonderful description of the STLP and the excitement that generated. Also heard about teacher voices. Well, I've got a voice too, and I've been under attack, and I don't like it. And I'm getting ready to finish out my career. Why does this matter to me? Well, a revocation or suspension will keep me out of the university, of which I very much hope to return to. So that bothers me. Not finishing what I start bothers me, and I don't have a lot of time left. Being falsely accused. What would you do? What would you do if the system changed and nobody told you? All of a sudden, rigor doesn't matter, relevance doesn't matter, skills don't matter. What would you have done? Well, I'm going to go back to helping kids long term, and occasionally this hurts some people's feelings. Move on. 30 seconds? Oh my God, this is my first point. Okay, I need some help. Let's finish with that. I need some help. Examine the record. I beg you to examine the record. I beg you to go to Jefferson County Public Schools and take a look around some of these middle schools and high schools. You will not believe how toxic and how dangerous they are. I speak 26 years experience. Take it for what it's worth. Thank you for letting me address you. And have a good day. Thank you.
All right, moving along to reports of the chair. So I have some news to share, which I will not do fully of the sharing, but this will be Vice Chair Weedman's last meeting with us. She has been faithfully on this board for a few years now, and
A few fun years.
A few fun years. And so I just wanted to make sure that we took a moment to thank her for her service and dedication to the board. And I've been trying to hide it over here as much as possible. I'm sure I didn't do such a great job, but we just wanted to present you with this plaque for your time here. I'll get it out, but I won't rip it so you can put it back. to travel. I am ripping it. All right, never mind. So, I want to thank you for your service and your time here. And I would like, I don't want to share your good news with everyone, so I was going to let you take a moment to share anything that you'd like or to let the board
Very
know.
kind, very unexpected, but definitely wasn't a decision I made lightly because when I let my employment know that I was going to be leaving, I was like, I will always be the fiercest advocate for public schools. And that's to my core. Both my parents were public school teachers, my siblings, my cousins. It just seems to run in the family. It's contagious. And I have definitely developed great relationships. But this past year at my district, I've had the opportunity, when we talk about vibrant learning experiences, coming from a very primary nature, we view the environment kind of as the third teacher. And that happens a lot during preschool, but it doesn't get passed on with like elementaries and middles and high schools. And so when teaching and learning about learner-centered practices, there's a lot of opportunity for learning about instructional practices, but a big hand in that is the physical environment, and a lot of the knowledge about like what goes into a physical environment and the research-based practices lives up in like architecture firms or like the design world and doesn't get passed on to the actual user, being like the teacher or the child. And I've had the absolute opportunity of a lifetime to pursue that with JCPS this past year. I'm very thankful to have led alongside my team and our chief academic officer to do a lot of co-designing of spaces and some teacher training around creating the actual environment. And the data and the empathy interviews I've done made it impossible to walk away from the work. Hearing our students talk about how they felt a sense of safety and that their schools no longer, they felt a lot less like prison. When you hear that and hearing students talk about how they've never had a desk that they've been able to comfortably like fit into or have voice and choice in their seating, it wasn't something I could walk away from, and I was able to work with the rest of the ESSER money, but we know that's going away. So I was like, what do I do here? Because I didn't know if I'd had the opportunity again, but this new position will allow me to do this, continue this work across Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee. So I kind of get to expand on that and have the gift of following funding where it leads. And long term, I think it's going to be great to have someone that will have both sides of it to learn kind of the manufacturing process, but then also be able to work alongside schools. And when they talk about like we're doing project-based learning or design thinking or talking about their protocols, to have someone that's lived it, breathed it, and understand it. So I don't know if it's a forever thing, but for right now, it seemed like the best move, and to be able to obtain some certifications that I wanted to get, that like endorsed me to work alongside architects. It was the best thing for me in the moment, but definitely was a hard decision, and I have learned so much on EPSB. It really paints a unique picture of how everything works together through the state, because especially when we've talked about the teacher pipeline, there's been things where I initially am like, oh, like this sounds so great, but then you realize like, oh, this could actually harm other counties, especially if it was pulling from, I think about like the interstate sectionality and how it could impact like our border states. So it's definitely been a unique learning experience, and I've enjoyed getting to know all of you. I'll probably miss my favorite member, Professor Chip, the most. If I ever get the chance to work for some schools in Bowling Green, I will be paying him a visit. So, but thank you guys for the opportunity. I have definitely really enjoyed my time here. So.
Well, thank you for that, and I'm sure our board will miss you and your presence here on the board as well.
I hope you guys find someone that loves waivers as much as I do.
That is true. So just speaking of that, that does leave an opening. So at the next meeting, we will be taking nominations for vice chair. So be thinking about that over the next month, if that's something that you would be interested in, or if you know of somebody that you think should be interested in stepping up to that position, come prepared for that nomination at the next meeting. Other updates, I am ready for the General Assembly to to finish up as well. It has sort of been difficult trying to balance teaching in the classroom and keeping up with all of the bill numbers. I know I'm always like, Cassie, what's that number represent again? So constantly trying to keep up there. I'm hopeful that we will have some wins for our priorities that we have set before the end of session. And so fingers crossed that that continues, and those legislative priorities that we set earlier in the fall, or the end of fall there, will come about through that, and we'll go from there. So that's all that I have for reports. So we will now move to consent items. Items A through J are listed on the agenda as consent items, and I will give the members a moment to review the list.
Chair Mitchell, I just want to let you know I'll be recusing myself because my university is involved in one of the cases.
Thank you for letting me know. All right, does anyone wish to remove any of the items from the consent agenda for further discussion? Having received no request to remove items from the consent agenda, can I have a motion to approve consent items A through J?
Make a motion to approve consent items A through J.
Thank you, Ms. Snell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Cousins. The motion before the board is to approve consent items A through J. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion passes. Today we have one new information item presented for review and discussion only by Cassie Trueblood. So I'll give her a moment to get set up.
I've got quite a few items here today. They're busy during this week, so sorry about that. But yes, we're starting with information item A, which should look familiar because you just saw this in February. This is the regulation for student teaching. At the February meeting, the board did review a proposed amendment to the regulation that made changes based on the previous waivers that this board has approved, as well as incorporating feedback from the CACTE organization. There were 2 points that the board discussed a little further during that, and one was the recommendation around the possibility of having one student teaching placement in certain circumstances to allow for more depth in that experience, and then also allowing for candidates with less than 3 years, if they did have that additional background and support, to be able to serve as cooperating teachers. Those changes were made and are included in the materials for you, which starts on page 64 of your agenda book, and then page 66 begins the draft regulation. However, instead of bringing this back to you for action, as we had originally planned, we have this back for information because of some requirements that are in House Bill 162 that is currently pending and likely to make it across the finish line in the last 2 days. But specifically, Section 7 of that bill provides that field experiences and student teaching placements with teachers that model and supervisors with knowledge of these set portions of that bill around mathematics educators, and then also tasks the EPSB with developing an evaluation rubric for observing teacher candidates with focus on mathematics content and pedagogical knowledge. At this time, if you all would like to discuss moving forward with that, how you see that going forward, any recommendations, we would like to enlist our partners for assistance in this. I know that Dr. Diebel has had the early literacy cohort, and they've also been working to have the mathematics group up and running as well. We would like to enlist their help in this as we look to see how best to update your regulation to incorporate that.
So I'm clear.
we've made the changes, but now we're gonna hold off on it to see what happens at the finish line of this application. And then we'll come back and may have to revise the changes to the draft to include that language as well.
Yes, so if, again, this was, seems to be a priority bill that is out there. It's had a lot of support in both the House and the Senate. I believe it actually got funding in the Senate and is back in the House for concurrence. I'm not sure why it didn't make it out those last 2 days, or before these last 2 days, but if it does become law, then we would need to address this in the regulation. If not, it's still something to consider, because if it doesn't make it, it's still a possibility that we will see this again in some version next year. But those are the two specific pieces around student teaching. There are other things in that bill that the board would have to address as well, such as a list of mathematics assessments, similar to the literacy.
I just had another question. Is it cleaner to put it in, I guess, since it's dealing with math, that this amendment or regulation deals with student teaching generally, is there a possibility to be able to create a separate standalone administrative regulation dealing specifically with math so as not to merge the two together?
I think that would be hard for elementary, wouldn't it?
So, yes, I mean, there is the possibility that you could create a separate regulation that deals specifically with student teaching requirements for those that are pursuing these, affected certifications. I think that does get a little convoluted, because they are still going to be student teaching, and so you would need 50402 to reference that at some point, because the way that this language is appearing, those that are pursuing those certifications, they have to have additional requirements met in their placements, making sure that they are placed with those appropriate teachers, and then also the rubric that the board has to establish for the evaluation of them. You don't have an evaluation rubric necessarily, so the language in there also doesn't specify that it has to be utilized, but it does have to be created by the board.
Are we able to designate that to the EPPs though? Like to say to ed prep providers, you must create, I don't know how the potential language is right now.
So I think we could, the language is that the EPSB shall develop an evaluation rubric for observing teacher candidates with focus on mathematics content and pedagogical knowledge. So the board does have to adopt a evaluation rubric. They have to develop that.
So it would be a singular one, is what you're saying, versus like each individual college, right?
That would be my
Yeah.
understanding of that language as that exists.
So a quick comment then to just that idea in general. I know we talked about people to help us out with some of these processes. I know that the Kentucky Center of Mathematics was very involved with a lot of this bill work. They have representatives from almost every college, I think, as part of their KCM team. Kelly DeLong, Dr. DeLong would be a great go-to person as a director, I think, to help us with a lot of this work. Speaking as a math teacher, we have another math teacher here on this board. KCM is really the gold standard in our state for leading the future of mathematics education, I think.
I just want to be really careful about how we interpret the language that's coming to us from the legislature to make sure that we're maintaining some level of independence for our EPPs in developing their own rubrics, right? So like every EPP has a rubric for student teaching. I think this is the first time that we've really seen language saying that this board has to establish the rubric. And so if there's a way for us to...
And actually, I think KACTE a couple of years ago attempted to standardize a student teaching observation rubric because of the requirements of CAPE to establish a valid and reliable instrument. So a lot of work has been done on that instrument. So making a specific focus on math would have implications for EPPs.
Seeing that in front of us right now, what's on the horizon? Are we gonna have rubrics for English? Are we gonna have rubrics for science? Are we gonna have rubrics for history, et cetera? So creating something in structure for us so that we can expand and contract as we need to, as these other potentials loom in front of us.
And I think that's something that the board could potentially explore with the, partnering with CACD of a general student teaching rubric, and then also for mathematics, looking to ACM for that additional. Now, the language in here, I do want to caution this, but there's been a lot of changes and a lot of bills, and so my understanding right now of this language as it exists is that the board is tasked with developing that evaluation rubric. It does not specifically state that the EPPs would have to implement that rubric. So there may be additional, as this is the guidance that is going from the EPSB to our EPPs to utilize this. This is kind of your, what you want to aim for, but you may have additional things based on the needs of the districts in your area, the needs of your students that you're evaluating on. So I don't think this is necessarily an easy, straightforward task, but it is one that we have before us. But I have heard reaching out to our CACT group as well as ACM for guidance and for feedback on the development of these two pieces. And then as we get into that, if to Captain Resent's point, we see that, okay, maybe some things need to be separated out into a separate regulation, looking to see if that is a need.
I mean, I think that would be the best to include those groups. That's what we always challenge the General Assembly to include us when it comes to that. So including the Center for Math and CACT groups to have a part and a say into these evaluation tools, I think is important.
Hopefully we will be able to bring this to you for action next time with those additional pieces addressed. But we will work with our partners on that and bring this back to you in one form or another.
So now, we're still with Ms. Trueblood with action items. So we're moving on to action item A at this time.
So action item A started out as part of your ongoing regulation review. This is 16 KAR 2110, and it starts on the staff note is on page 75 with the draft regulation starting on page 77. If you remember, you have to review your regulations every 7 years to make the determination of whether you want them to remain in effect as is. If you want to certify them with the intent to amend, then that means you have to file that amendment within the 2-month period. So with this regulation, which does set the standards for the endorsement for teachers for gifted education, we had certified this with the intent to amend, and that amendment was based on removing the certification application. You'll remember we've been going through our regulations and removing the reference to an actual application form and just putting in the information that is needed because those forms are outdated as we have moved to the online system. With this, the reference to the grade range of the endorsement has also been updated to align with what is in 16 KAR 2010. But then we also have an additional amendment that is made based on Senate Bill 265. And that's going to affect most of these regulations before you today, so I wanted to go through that for you as well. Senate Bill 265 is one that started out with just making some amendments to option 7. It was moving the requirement for the option 7 candidates to take the praxis to the end, so still keeping that requirement, but moving it to the ends and allowing them to obtain the certification upon enrollment in the institute. In the House, it picked up an amendment, or a committee sub, that added in House Bill 828, which has the mentoring program that we're still hoping to see some funding for, but then also some certification language. And specifically, the certification language was that the issuance of any certificate except emergency certificates issued by the EPSB shall not be dependent upon an offer of employment. The certification process, except for emergency certificates, is independent of any job prospects, and certification shall be awarded the basis of completing a teacher preparation program for alternative certification pathway and passing required assessments. They do not want any certificate other than emergency certificates to be conditioned upon an offer of employment. So previously, your probationary certificates and endorsements did have language in there that required an offer of employment before issuance. To comply with Senate Bill 265, which is likely to become law in the next 2 days, and is an emergency, we have removed those references to the offer of employment. In practice, an individual is not going to need a probationary certificate unless they have the offer of employment. We just can't require it in the regulation or on the front end. So that has been updated as well. Again, with probationaries, these are only available to already certified teachers. So somebody who is certified that is then enrolled in the program to add, in this case, the endorsement. Are there any questions? Because I have struggled a little bit with the practicality of this and getting it into practice, into writing. But if you, this is an action item, so if you are ready to go with this regulation before you, then we would ask that you approve the amendment before you. We will file that with the Legislative Research Commission to get the process started.
I make a motion to approve action item.
Snell with the second. The motion before the board is to approve 16 KAR 2110, an endorsement for teachers for education amendment. Is there any discussion?
Question, and it's really just a curiosity question, but was there any discussion as to why this latter part of the change is being asked? Any examples as to how that helps or hurts or?
So we did speak with the sponsor of House Bill 828 following House Education when it was added in, and to the sponsor's credit, we do appreciate some additional amendments that we got, because originally emergencies were included in that. He did add the language to exclude emergencies from that, and there was also a very problematic provision that was added into option 6 that was going to require option 6 candidates to take the praxis prior to issuance of the temporary provisional certificate. He did remove that language as well through floor amendments, I believe. There seems to be a belief, especially around the alternative routes, that the lack of use about alternative routes is due to that offer of employment. You know, last year we did see the creation of the procedures around an eligibility for hire letter that the board had to do to comply with changes to KRS 161048. I don't know where that has come from, where that idea is, but it does seem to be that this is one of the things that's inhibiting people from utilizing these routes, is if we are conditioning it on certification. And that certification and job offers should be separate, that we are in just a state of an emergency, and so when they need to hire, they need to hire. There will be some additional conversations that we're going to need to have, especially around the alternative routes, because I have not quite worked through a recommendation of how we're going to make those work in practice, because it has added in language that all of your alternative routes now have to have completed 1 year of teaching experience before they can be issued the probationary certificate, the professional certificate. But it can't condition any certificate issued to them on an offer of employment. Option 6 still requires that they are employed concurrently with being in the program, but we can't require that offer of employment before issuance of the certificate. Now, again, in practice, people do not need alternative certification until they're ready to be in those roles. So, open to suggestions and discussion from anybody that has some great ideas.
We're still in the discussion phase of this motion. Any other discussion or questions?
Thank you for your efforts to help the sponsor clear some of the hiccups that inadvertently may have been.
We were very happy with the 4 amendments that we did.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion passes. Next we have action item B.
Okay, action item B is going to be a little complicated, and I apologize for that. But this is the probationary certificates for teachers of exceptional children. You did approve the amendment to this last time in recognition of the removal of the emergency certificates for special education. We also removed the requirements for coursework prior to issuance of the certificate. And then as I was preparing for this meeting, you had another regulation, 16 KAR 2140, that sets the probationary certificate for interdisciplinary early childhood education, which your IECE certificates are also special education certificates. And so they are set to the same requirements under IDEA. And the process and changes that we were making to that regulation mirrored this regulation. So instead of having 2 separate regulations out there, our recommendation is to combine the requirements of IECE into this one. It is still 2 separate certificates, but they follow that same requirement, same pathway. And then simply allowing the other regulation to expire, so we're not having people going back and forth for a chapter 2 searching for requirements. Where I've added a complication for you is that I did not originally remove the offer of employment requirement from this. And part of that is my struggle to wrap my head around this requirement and the practice of it, and then also the requirements within IDEA that have the individual being employed. However, as we look at it closer, IDEA is only implicated if they are employed in the position. So that, again, does not have to be in the certification requirement. Also, after the materials were published, I received an email from an HR director who wanted to express her support for the amendments and for the changes around this, but questioned that offer of employment, especially the language around having no qualified candidates. And she phrased that in terms of, with option 6, with your proficiency, when you are certifying initial individuals that have a bachelor's degree in another area, they don't have to show no qualified candidates. So then why would you require that for a probationary certificate that is only available to certified teachers? So, printed out on your stations today is an additional amendment to this that would make the same changes to 16 KAR 2160 and remove that offer of employment.
So how does our motion need to be worded?
So if you want to approve the printed out copy that also removes that offer of employment, then the motion would be to approve the revised amendment to 16 KAR 2160.
And the staff recommendation is that?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Well, sorry.
All right. Mr. Edwards? And thank you, Vice Chair Weedman. The motion before the board is to approve the revised amendment of 16 KAR 2160 probationary certificate for teachers of exceptional children agency amendment. Is there any discussion? Last call for discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion passes. Next, we have action item C.
Action item C starts on page 92 with the regulation beginning on page 94. This is 16 KAR 2170, which establishes the probationary certificates for middle school teachers. Again, this was also part of your ongoing regulation review where you had certified this to amend. We removed that reference to the outdated application form and then have also made other amendments. One to remove the reference to the offer of employment to comply with Senate Bill 265, and then also allowing for the issuance of the probationary certificate upon enrollment in the program, just like with our special education certificates.
This time, do I have a motion?
Action item C.
Thank you, Captain Rosinski. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Snell. The motion before the board is to approve 16 KAR 2170 probationary certificate for middle school teachers amendment. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion passes. Next, we have action item D.
This is the last regulation I have for you this time, but I will have more next time, so get excited for that. Starting on page 99 is the staff note, and page 101 is the regulation. This is 16 KAR 2200, and that is the probationary endorsement for teachers of English as a second language. This was also part of your ongoing review, and it removed the reference to the outdated application and then also picked up the amendment to remove the offer of employment under Senate Bill 265. Any questions on that one?
At this time, I'll need a motion. Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Is there a second? Thank you, Vice Chair Weedman. The motion before the board is to approve 16 KAR 2200 probationary endorsement for teachers of English of a second language amendment. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay, and the motion passes. Last, we have action item E, presented by Thomas Davis.
Chair Mitchell, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As you're aware, KRS 161.030 authorizes the EPSB to determine assessments for teacher certification. And specifically, 16 KAR 6020, Section 2, provides the EPSB, authorizes EPSB to determine those specialty tests and cut scores for the Office of Career and Technical Education and those career pathways. So OCTE has proposed revisions to the current CTE assessment order. The proposed revisions are necessary to match updated industry standards and current certifications offered. The revised CTE assessment order is included in your packet for review. I have Ms. Kathy Cohen and Beth Engel from OCTE. If you have any questions.
I will note with this as well, you all have seen this order, I think most recently in December, and they have provided us with some additional changes, and then going forward, we're going to be looking at annual reviews and updates in partnership with OCTE, probably to align with what you.
Any questions or discussions at this point? All right, well, I don't hear any, so at this time, I will need a motion. Thank you, Dr. Cousins. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Snell. The motion before the board is to approve 16 KAR, I'm on the wrong one, 16 KAR 6020, assessment prerequisites for occupation-based career and technical education certification. Is there any discussion?
I have a question. I noticed, and I can't believe I'm about to ask this, but I noticed like a lot of the scoring changes are going from like a lower score to a higher score, which is like very unusual for us to see. It's usually kind of the reverse, that we're trying to get more people into the profession. Could you kind of elaborate on the process of deciding that? I was going to make sure, one, I'm sure I love that we're going higher, but will this prevent more people from joining?
This was decided to increase the depth of knowledge of some of our educators. There are a few that it would not affect, and some others that it would just raise the bar, making sure that they can deliver the content that's needed.
Any other questions or discussion?
I have, they posted somewhere, are the scores posted somewhere in the test publicly? Like for, if I'm interested in becoming a business and marketing education teacher or a welding teacher, how do they find out about those tests and the scores that they need as a CTE center? We had a teacher that we hired, or we're in the process of hiring, and he found out about the test in very short order that he take that test. And so how are we communicating that information to all of our CTE centers, so as they are in the process of hiring, they can include that in information, with potential candidates? Just curious.
That is a very good question. So we have this information published in several areas on the CTE website, the Office of Technical Education. We also have our certification specialist who works with those districts and state operating centers to ensure that everyone knows the requirements, and we're also updating our occupation-based certification guidance. So that way it is, I guess, easier to find on our website, so that if there is a surprise when someone is seeking that type of certification.
Thanks. Any other questions or discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. And the motion passes. Thank you all. All right. Vice Chair Weedman's favorite time of the meeting. The board is now ready to review waiver requests. KRS 161028 1N provides that the board has the authority to waive its administrative regulations when a request is submitted by an applicant for certification, a post-secondary institution, or a superintendent of a local school district. When requesting a waiver, the requesting party must submit to the board a written request along with appropriate justifications for the waiver. EPSB staff reviewed the waiver with the EPSB Waiver Committee during an open meeting immediately prior to this meeting, and the Waiver Committee formulated a recommendation. Today, we will have one waiver request. Brennan Herod will present the waiver request to the full board, and the Waiver Committee Chair, Kathy Gunn, will present the committee's recommendation for final action.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the board and Vice Chairman Weedman. Wish you the best in your endeavors, and we couldn't let you go without at least one waiver. This one is for 16KR 5040. This was submitted by Transylvania University. As you may or may not know, students that do student teaching must complete 70 full days of instruction to meet the requirement for student teaching. Due to closures in Fayette County, Transylvania University has had a little bit of an issue getting them to that full 70 days. They have submitted some things they've done to try to help supplement some of those days. They submitted a list of students that this has affected. I think it was a total of 6 students, and they're requesting at least one day be waived for those students that have completed 69.
The Waiver Committee reviewed the waiver request and supporting documentation submitted by Transylvania University. The committee found exceptional circumstances justifying the waiver. Therefore, the committee recommends that EPSB grant the waiver.
Thank you. At this time, I will need a motion
make a motion to approve the waivers. Again,
I was waiting
sure
for
we
you.
had a moment, but I'm trying to get it. She looked like she was in the zone, so I just wanted to
Thank you.
go to the next one.
CJ.
Any second, there you go.
All right, good. Second, Vice Chair Weedman. The motion before the board is to approve 16 KAR 5040 request to waive student teacher days due to district school closures for Transylvania universities. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay, and the motion passes. We have 3 alternative route to certification applications. These applicants are pursuing the option 1 exceptional work experience route to certification. This is one of the alternative routes established by the legislature in KRS 161048. An applicant with exceptional work experience must have an offer of employment from a local school district, a bachelor's or graduate degree meeting minimum GPA requirements, and an academic major or a passing score on an academic content assessment in the area in which certification is being sought. The board will need to determine if the applicant's work experience constitutes exceptional work experience. The applications are presented by Todd Davis.
Good morning again, and just the craziness, this is the first time I can say that we have more option 1 candidates than we do waivers.
Yes.
The action item A is Scott County Public Schools has submitted an application for Miss Mary Beath, requesting music for all grades. Miss Beath has over 15 years of professional experience in the field of music. She's taught private vocal lessons to students of all ages, established strategic partnerships in multiple school choir programs, and provided private lessons to students as well. She's prepared students for college auditions, recitals, competitions as well, and she is a professional soloist and performed in several operas, such as Kentucky Opera House, Lexington Singers, and at different universities. She served as a judge additionally in the National Association of Teachers of Singing and for the University of Kentucky Young Singers Competition. She's provided the information also in your packet as well. The applicant meets the requirements and has an academic major in the area.
All right. At this time, I will need a motion.
Motion.
Thank you, Ms. Berry, and the second came from, thank you, Captain Rosinski. The motion before the board is to approve the alternative route certification for Mary Beath in music in all grades. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay, and the motion passes. Next is application B.
Application B is submitted by Oldham County Public Schools in regards to Miss Dawn Campbell seeking theater certification, all grades. Ms. Campbell has over 15 years of theater experience. She has experience facilitating auditions, casting, creating rehearsals, schedules, production timelines, communication platforms, etc. Ms. Campbell has served as an education and community outreach associate for a nonprofit theater ensemble. She has communicated with schools and youth centers to promote theater productions and confirm tour schedules connected and aligned to Kentucky academic standards. She also has television, film, and commercial experience, several local commercials she participated in, and received professional awards for her theater productions and presentations. The candidate meets all requirements and has an academic major in the area.
Thank you. At this time, I'll need a motion.
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Is there a second? Thank you, Vice Chair Weedman. The motion before the board is to approve the alternative route certification for Dawn Campbell in theater for all grades. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay, and the motion passes. Last, we have application C.
Application C is Eminence Independent Schools has submitted an application for Miss Lisa Stivers, for Family Consumer Science in grades 5 through 12. Ms. Stivers has over 25 years experience as a family and youth services coordinator. She has referred, provided, and facilitated services for individuals and families through collaboration and coordination to enhance students' ability to succeed in school setting, as well as successfully transition to adulthood. Ms. Stivers was responsible for family and training program, family and training program, which involves visits, home visits, group meetings, monitoring of child development for new and expectant parents. In addition, Ms. Stivers' position required her to administer family literacy services to promote lifelong learning and provide parents and children the opportunity to learn together. The applicant has a major in the academic area and meets all requirements.
This time I'll need a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Murphy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. The motion before the board is to approve the alternative route to certification for Lisa Stivers, Family Consumer Sciences, grades 5 through 12. 12, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion passes. Thank you. I will now open the floor to any board members for board comments. Does anyone have anything they wish to share?
I just want to thank Kathy for all of the updates. You were very helpful in keeping us posted and answering all of our questions and even taking phone calls for hours on end when we had more questions. So thank you, and thank you for your advocacy on helping folks understand the implications of some of that work.
Not sure how effective it was, but we tried.
Any other comments?
Just want to wish Dr. the best. And I want to add, Sarah, I'll miss your pink.
I'll miss your socks. She always has fun socks. We don't, at the meeting. It's not a new thing. We're not sharing socks. For clarification.
You don't want to see them now, no.
Any other comments?
I'll put a quick PSA out there on the note of our high attendance at the Ed Rising State Conference. Today is the early bird discount registration for the national conference in DC, and it's also the deadline for our Kentucky students to register to compete at nationals. They have till 5 o'clock today. Anyone who's top 10 or higher in the competition is eligible to compete in DC this summer.
Thank you. I haven't gone the whole meeting and talked anything about the Kentucky teacher program or teacher internship program, and so I'm hopeful that with the 2 days left that we will get funding for the mentor program. It is more than we have now, and hopefully we can continue to make that better over the course of the next few years too. But we need funding to implement that, so I'm hopeful that that will occur.
Well, along those same notes, please check your certification. Don't wait till June.
Anything else? All right, at this time, I believe we are ready to go into closed session pursuant to KRS 61810(1)C and J to conduct a character and fitness review and to review potential actions relating to complaints and reports. The board will also review pending litigation. At this time, I will need a motion to go into closed session. Thank you, Ms. Snell. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Reber. The motion before the board is to go into closed session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And we're now ready to move into closed session. We will take a 10-minute break. All right. At this time, I will need a motion to go back into open session. Thank you, Ms. Snell. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. The motion before the board is a motion to go back into open session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And we are back in open session. At this time, I will read the decision in closed sessions, and then we will vote on those. Character and fitness. 1, approve. 2, approve with conditions. 3, approve. 4, approve with conditions. 5 through 15, approve. 16 through 21, approve. For emergency substitute character and fitness, number 1, approve. 2, deny. 3 through 8, approve. 9 through 14 approved. For agreed orders 1 through 31, accept. On findings of fact, conclusions of law, and recommended order and appeal rights for number 1, we accept on findings of facts, conclusions of law, and recommended orders and appeal rights. For motions to reconsider, number 1, we deny. For educator cases, 1, defer for training, de-escalation training. 2, dismiss with prejudice. 3, defer for training, de-escalation training. 4, attorney review. 5, defer for training, educator ethics training. 6, dismiss with prejudice. 7 through 9, attorney review. Number 10, defer for training, cultural sensitivity training. 11 through 18 and 19, attorney review. 20 and 21, admonish. 22, defer for training, appropriate boundaries training. 23, attorney review. 24, admonish. 25 and 26, attorney review. 27, defer for training, trauma-informed classroom management training. 28 through 47, attorney review. 48, defer for training, classroom management training. 49, attorney review. 50, dismiss with prejudice. 51, attorney review. 52, defer for training, trauma-informed classroom management training. 53 and 54, dismiss with prejudice. 55 through 58, attorney review. 59, defer for training, confidentiality training. 60, defer for training, educator ethics and classroom management training. 61 through 69, admonish. 70, dismiss with prejudice. 71, defer for training, admin and code training. 72 and 73, dismiss with prejudice. 74, defer for training, KHSAA, bylaw 16 training. 75, attorney review. 76, dismiss, 76, defer for training, OEA recommended training. 77, defer for training, OEA recommended training. 78, no further action. 79 through 84, refer to hearing. 85 through 87, dismiss with prejudice. 88, dismiss without prejudice. 89 and 90, dismiss with prejudice. 91, admonish. 92 and 93, dismiss with prejudice. 94, admonish. 95, 96, and 97, dismiss with prejudice. At this time, we'll go around and vote on what we decided, starting with Vice Chair Weed.
Agree on all character and fitness and emergency substitute cases. Under agreed orders, I agree on all with the exception of 13 and 19A. I recuse myself. Agree on all others. In all educator cases with the exception of 33, I dissent, and I recuse myself on educator case 46. Agree on all others.
Alrighty, I will state my recusal first. Educator case number 44, recuse myself, and I agree with everything else.
CJ Fryer, recuse on educator case 26, approve all others.
Kathy Gunn, agree on all.
James Cousins, agree on all.
Susan Reaper, agree on all.
Corinne Murphy, agree on all.
I recuse myself on educator cases 30 and 41 and approve all others. Amy Lingo, agree to all.
Diane Berry, agree to all.
Elijah Edwards, recuse myself on educator case 14, agree on all others.
Amber Snell, agree on all.
Justin Mitchell, recuse on agreed orders 27, agree on the rest. All right, at this time, I will need a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Ms. Snell. Is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Lingo. The motion before the board is to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed say nay. And we are now adjourned.